think my mask of sanity is about to slip. If you stay, something bad will happen. Sabrina, why don't you dance a little? Christy, get down on your knees.
Can we go now?
We're not through yet. I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane? Do you have any witnesses or fingerprints?
Actually, yes.
Very nice.
I don't want to get bruised. You're inhuman.
I know my behavior can be erratic. I need to engage in homicidal behavior on a massive scale. Hey, Paul!
So what do you do?
I'm into murders and executions mostly. I have to kill a lot of people!
Welcome to Real Dead.
Hey everyone, this is Mike.
Hey, and this is Josh.
And we are
Real Dead.
Dead. That's right.
And
that's
today, Mike, we're going to do a movie that's one of my personal favorites. And you actually never have seen it at this point. I mean, before we did this review.
Correct.
So it came out in 2000, and the movie is called American Psycho. And Christian Bale, this is probably the first movie I ever saw him in. And he does an incredible job in this movie, acting-wise. No doubt about it.
I agree. Incredible actor.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He did a great job acting in it. He's actually only 25 in this movie, Mike. So
that's hard to believe. He's a good actor overall, though. I enjoy a lot of the movies he's been in. Even his recent one that was like back in the 1800s, he did. I can't remember something about the pale something, but
yeah,
I've always liked him. I liked him as Batman. I think he played Batman, right?
Yep, in 3 movies. Yes.
Yep. I liked him as Batman.
This movie is rated R, which actually was rated. They actually had to cut stuff out to make it a rated R. It was actually rated higher than that, NC-17 at one point in time. And yeah, it's a really good movie. I did not go see this in the theater, but like it caught a lot of steam. I remember when it was released on video and stuff, and I remember my friends at work just talking about it. And so I was like, I got to check this movie out. I rented it, really enjoyed it. We actually would quote the movie at work quite a bit. We actually, when he's talking about Phil Collins in Genesis, and he says, I didn't understand their work before Duke. Too artsy. And he's like, too intellectual, too artsy. And we used to always say that word, like, too artsy. We used to always just say that. So we actually would say things from this movie. So I really like this movie a lot. And it has, it has a good nostalgia feel for me just because of the things I can relate to it. So yeah, I enjoyed it. So Mike, do you have the synopsis there, Mike?
Yeah, let me see if I can get you a synopsis. Let me go ahead and give you the Rotten Tomatoes score first, and then I'll get the synopsis here.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so right there is the Rotten Tomatoes score, a whopping 85.
Yeah.
From the audience, and a 68, which is not a bad score from the critics.
Yep, the audience really liked this, and I agree. I'm with the audience on this one. I mean, the audience, I think, gets it right here. There's a more deeper meaning to this story than just kill, whatever, but it does have its fair share of kills in it. Of course, it's a horror movie. It was actually a book at first, and the book caused a lot of controversy when it was released. So, yeah. What do you think about that critic score, Mike?
It's actually a little bit. I think it's a pretty big gap though from the audience. That's what blows me away with that. With a 68 and what was it? 85, 65 and 85, 68 and 85.
Yeah.
Which is still not a bad critic score. Don't get me wrong, especially for a horror movie. But it does that's a pretty big gap. I mean, almost 20 points. That's quite a bit.
Yeah.
I do have the synopsis here if you want to hear that.
Go ahead.
It says in New York City in 1987, a handsome young urban professional, Patrick Bateman, which is played by Christian Bale, lives a second life as a gruesome serial killer by night. The cast is filled by the detective William Dafoe, the fiance Reese Witherspoon, the mistress Samantha Mathis, the co-worker Jared Leto, and the secretary Chloe Sevigny. This is a biting, wry comedy examining the elements that make a man a monster.
Yeah, it does. It really does. This man is a monster, no doubt. And in the time, he seems pretty normal. I mean, he works at Wall Street. He's well-to-do. He's got a group of friends. And they, like, the thing I noticed when I watch this movie is that everybody is so preoccupied with themselves that they don't pay attention to anything, really, in this world that he's living in. You have everybody calling each other different names, like they don't know who each are really. Like there's people that he meets, like when he meets Paul Allen calls him 2 different names. When the first time he meets him, he calls him one name. The second time he sees him, he calls him a different name, a totally different name. So he thinks he's 2 different people besides the real guy. And Paul Allen even talks junk on Patrick Bateman.
To Patrick Bateman.
That's right. So, like, in this world, everybody's so, like, into themselves. And I don't know what Wall Street was like in the 80s. I'm assuming it was nuts like this. And it was just like a dog-eat-dog world and all that. So, it's very interesting look into that. And then how he's kind of transformed himself into this American Psycho. So, what were some of your likes of the movie, Mike?
Well, there's a lot of stars in this movie. I mean, the acting overall, supporting cast, Christian Bale. I'm a big William Dafoe fan. I like William Dafoe. I did not know Reese Witherspoon would be in this movie. That kind of shocked me when I first saw it come up and start, saying who the cast was. It's that I can't take anything away from the acting. The acting's top notch.
Yeah. Yep.
We'll talk more about the end of it. Maybe I can say what I like and don't like towards the very end once we kind of spoil the the beans on everything. But it's one of those movies you definitely have to think. I think it's one of those movies you can watch 3 or 4 or 5 times, and you're going to get something different out of it every time.
Yeah.
And after I watched this, I had a perception of what I thought it was, and then me and my wife were both complexed about it that I had to go back and do more research and read up on what other people thought it meant, and then even what the director and the person that wrote the book meant. I mean, you can look at this movie and have 3 or 4 different endings or 10 different endings in your mind of what it really meant.
Yep. Yeah, you're right. And I think that's one of the things that makes a rewatch of this movie really good. It's very high rewatchability in my opinion for those reasons, because you're going to be looking for different things in the movie that you didn't watch the first or second time. You know what I mean? You're going to be looking for, like, if you watch this movie the first time, you might not even catch that these people are calling people other names.
Right.
You might not catch that.
Because there's a lot of characters, and you can easily get mixed up on who Paul Allen is versus Patrick Bateman versus blah blah blah. Even just keeping up with because there's so many people in this inner circle, like girlfriends, and then friends of his or co-workers of his, and then they're dating other people, and then they're having affairs with so and so. It can be very confusing when you're first watch it the first time. So it's a movie I've only watched one time as of right now. I will definitely go back and watch it again.
Yeah, and at first, your first reaction was, "Oh, this is slow and dumb." But after you actually thought about it,
that's a good call out. I did think it was 20 minutes into it before the first kill. Like 19 something, almost 20 minutes. And yes, I messaged you on Marco Polo, and I was like, man, this movie sucks. It's slow, and I don't care about seeing the guy's naked ass in the shower and all that kind of stuff. But towards the end, once you go back and realize how, what's
Yeah.
real, what's not real, and all that. It kind of
Definitely.
made more sense. It definitely is slow. I will say that starting out. So if you've never seen the movie like me, just prepare yourself that it's building up this character. You don't feel it at the time, but later on you'll realize how it was building it up.
Yeah, it's great that way. And there's one thing that I was watching today, and it said that part where William Dafoe, the detective, is like where he is talking and kind of like running some questions by Patrick Bateman. The director filmed that scene 3 different times, and each time had William Dafoe act like one time he had him act like he didn't know that, he wasn't suspicious at all. He was just like asking him questions to see if he knew anything. The second time the other time he had him act like he was a little suspicious, but he was just trying to see what's going on. The third time she had him do it was he knew the guy did it. And then so in that scene is spliced in those different parts. So each time you see him is like from a different part how he was acting, which is really cool. Once you go back and watch it, you'll realize like, whoa, like it is spliced in there, and it's really cool.
Those are 2 actors that are so good at their craft.
Yeah.
You could take William Dafoe and Christian Bale and do an impromptu show of, hey, this is going to be the script, this is the baseline, and you guys make it in between, and they would both do an excellent job. I could see them playing off each other very well.
Yeah. I got to give a shout out to Dorsia. I mean, that restaurant, people are.
I'm still trying to get in myself. In the 80s, now you said that like in the 80s, one thing you said, what are some likes? I grew up as a teenager in the 80s. I graduated high school in 89. 86, 87 through 89 is, kind of my 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old. The music in this movie is great to hear in the background and bring back memories. Some of the stuff on TV with Ronald Reagan and what was going on in the world at that time. And this was a 2000 some film, right? 2000 came out 2000.
Yeah.
So it was good to see some of that. And some of the songs I heard, me and Michelle right off the bat heard one of the songs from a female singer. And I was like, that's 1983 or 84. And that's why it kind of stuck in my head. It was maybe 83. But it was good for us as somebody in our 50s, early 50s, to hear this stuff in the 80s.
Was it
we kind of heard back then?
Was it when he played Whitney Houston?
No, it wasn't. It was another song. I can't remember the name of it.
He played Huey Lewis in the news.
There was a song playing in the background. It wasn't one that he played. It was another song playing.
Yeah.
I think when they were in a club or something, it was a song being played or something.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to talk about one of my favorite scenes in the movie where he kills Paul Allen, where he gets Paul Allen drunk and basically takes him to his apartment, or Paul Allen's apartment. I can't remember which apartment he takes him to, but there's already like newspaper on the floor, and when you see that, you're like, oh boy! And all the then you realize all the couches, everything has covers on it.
It reminded me of Dexter,
right? And Paul Allen is clueless because he's drunk, and stuff. And he turns on, he says, do you like Huey Lewis? And I love when he does that, dude. And then he's just like explaining about Huey Lewis. He said Sport was a great record. And then he was talking about Hip to Be Square. And then he was like, hey, Paul. And he like nails him with that axe, dude. And then when he's like, try to get a booking into Dorsia now, and he's like just chopping away because Paul Allen's like bragging that he can get into these places. He's bragging that he does this. He's bragging that his card. So whatever, these guys all have a competition of how their business card looks.
I like what was funny what was funny of him. He said something about how'd you get that account, and he's like, if I told you, I'd have to kill you.
Yeah, and like everybody's business cards. To me, I don't notice a difference, but these are like this is like giving him extreme anxiety and like just fuel to his fire of his madness about these freaking business cards.
Yeah.
But so in the movie he goes through and he like meets women and you don't get to see it, but he kills them. One you see he has these. You see that. He walks up to this woman, like talks to her. You know, of course, he looks like a nice guy. He looks well to do. You're, you know, single woman. You're going to talk to him or whatever. But then like he's trying to get his bed sheets washed, and they're like just covered in red. And he tells a lady that it's wine or whatever. And then another time he goes on a date, meets his model at a club or something. And then the next day he has his what's that? That blonde. What's
Secretary
come over, and he opens the fridge, and that model's head is in the refrigerator. So you know he killed her, and he roughed up some prostitutes. He ended up killing one lady that was over there, and he ended up killing the prostitute in a really cool way, where he's running around naked like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then he drops the chainsaw and it like nails her. It's awesome.
That kill, and I won't spill the beans on it yet. That kill is what made me wonder if this was reality or not.
Right. Right.
Because I was like, there's no way this guy's going to drop a chainsaw from the 10th floor down to the 4th or 5th floor and just so happen to perfectly hit this girl in the back like that. But
yeah. And then one of my favorite things when he has these prostitutes, he goes, "Do you like Phil Collins?" And he has no jacket required. And then he just goes into a great spiel about Genesis and Phil Collins, and he ends up playing Sister Sudia. And it's just a great spiel about that. We used to love that. But he ends up sparing his secretary, which is out of character when it comes to women, because he basically all of his victims, I think, besides Paul Allen, were women, right? I mean, they were all women.
Yeah.
Besides Paul Allen. And he lets her go. And I think it's because he sees value in her, like, other than just like for sex or whatever, like these prostitutes and call girls that he hires, or women that he picks up at the bar. And so he did let her go, but he did tell her, if you stay, I can't control myself. But she thought he was meaning like, I'll just bang.
Two different conversations going on. He's got one in his head. She's got one in her head. She wants. Yeah.
That's a really good scene, Mike.
Yeah.
That's a very good scene. And I really like that. So yeah, do you want to talk about the ending? I guess we can go to the ending. I mean, or do you want to talk about some negatives that you have first?
Or
do you want to just go to the ending?
Yeah, I think we just go to the ending, and then maybe I could talk about my negatives.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, he goes through this process. He kind of has a breakdown. There's at one point one of his guys from the showed that business card again, and he went into the bathroom. He's about to kill the guy, and the guy turns around and thinks he's wanting to have an affair with him. Yeah, and so then he leaves, and then he starting to get a little bit paranoid about things. He goes up to an ATM machine, and he picks up a cat. And I was like, he'd already killed a dog earlier, which was very brutal. They didn't show anything, but my wife was like freaking out when she heard that and saw or heard what was happening. But then when he looks at the screen, it says somebody kill the cat or put the stray in or something, kill the stray or something.
It said, "Feed me a cat."
Yeah, feed me a cat. So he turns around and shoots a lady that saw him doing this, trying to get money out, and he had pulled a gun out. He thought he was going to shoot the cat. And then there's like this big chase scene. He's running, the cops are after him. He's running in buildings and out of buildings, and he blows up this. I mean, it's something like this real extravagant. He shoots the cops, and then this big explosion happens, and then he runs back through apartment complexes. And
Mike, when he shoots those cop cars and a bunch of explosion, he like looks at the gun like, what?
When that happened, that's another part. When it happened, I'm like, this don't feel like this is real to me. I don't wonder if he's dreaming. I was afraid it was going to end up at the end of the movie as it was all a dream or something. So then he goes back to his office. At the same time, he calls this lawyer.
He kills two more people. He killed the security guard and a janitor too.
Yeah, you're right. He gets, he ends up going to his office, and he calls this lawyer and tells the lawyer, admits he's done all these bad things. He confesses, says, I've killed 30, 40 people. And he starts trying to name them all. And then he just, I think I killed 30 or 40. Yeah. And there's helicopters and stuff flying outside and lights coming in his office.
Well, he
And
named
then-
Paul. He named Paul Allen. He's like, I
Yeah.
killed Paul Allen.
Yep.
Right.
So then the next day, you know, he's somewhere with these guys, and he's freaking out. Calls his secretary. His secretary goes in his office. He starts talking crazy. She goes there and pulls out his calendar book, which he had been looking at earlier. And when you open it up, there's nothing written in it other than the dates that he supposedly killed these people and drawings, some pretty graphic drawings in it.
right.
She starts crying. She's like, "Oh my," you know, probably thinking, "Oh man, I could have been me next," you know.
Yeah.
And I'll let you take it over from here.
Well, he meets up with his friend. I mean, he basically wakes up and has like a normal day, a normal routine. Takes a shower, exercises, you know, gets his clothes, goes to work. He meets with his friends, and he like talks to him, or he's talking to him, and then he sees his lawyer there. So he goes up to his lawyer and he's like, "Hey, blah blah blah," and his lawyer calls him the wrong name. Did you notice that?
Yep.
Doesn't call him Patrick Bateman. I can't remember what name he called him, but he didn't call him the right name.
He called
And I
him
think
Marcus.
That's very important in my opinion. It's a very important part of the movie. And he was like, "Oh, I killed these people," and he's like, "No, you didn't." He's like, "That's, you know, it's made up." He goes, "I know Paul Allen isn't dead because I had lunch with him a week ago. But listen,
She said twice.
but in London, and that's what he said he was. Listen, though, this movie sets up so perfectly that no one knows who each other is, that he could have had lunch with somebody and thought it was Paul Allen. You know
Yep.
what I mean? That's what I feel. And he basically tells him, "Get a hold of yourself. You didn't do this. This is you're telling yourself lies or whatever." And he kind of just is disgusted with him and pushes him away. And basically he sits back down and with his friends, and the closing of this movie is really good, where he's just like talking to himself and he's just like totally black-eyed, man. I mean, there's like nothing behind his eyes, Mike, at this point. And he's like, "My confession, you know, meant nothing. I don't have my punishment eludes me. My confession has meant nothing." Now, we forgot about a part where he goes back to a room where he was keeping all the bodies, and none of them are there either. It's like,
Yeah, he goes to the apartment where a lot of this should have happened, where he did all this killing, and it's perfectly white. It's been painted. It's, you know, when he was chasing this lady down earlier, when he killed her with a chainsaw and he dropped it.
There was a ton of bodies in there.
Yeah, there was a ton of bodies in there, but that lady was knocking on every door and nobody came to the door.
Right.
When I'm watching the movie with my wife, I'm like, has he got this whole top level rented out or something? You know, why would nobody come to the door at all?
Maybe
But,
people aren't living there.
Huh?
Maybe there's nobody living there because that was a vacant apartment. That was Paul
Right.
Allen's apartment.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the very ending is, it makes you wonder if a lot of things, I think. I mean, Josh, maybe go ahead and tell your thoughts on what you thought the ending was to you.
To me is that, so I've thought a lot about this. I think all the killings never happened. I don't think they ever happened. I think they were just his fantasies while he was drawing in his book, and it was all just playing out in his mind, and he never killed anybody, in my opinion. None of it happened. That's why everybody was like, but there's a lot of questions because, you know, they leave a lot of those things, like where people call each other names and different things that happen in the movie that maybe they did happen. But like I said, to me, I think it was all in his head. And none of it really happened. None of the killing anyway.
I thought the exact same thing. When I first watched it, the two areas I told you earlier about that kind of, I was like, the chainsaw coming down, I was like, that's just not realistic. And then whenever the whole helicopters and stuff like that, and they didn't find him, and I was like, this is like, oh, and then the blow up scene with the cars, it was just like over exaggerated. And I told my wife, I was like, I'm afraid this is going to be a dream the whole time. And then when he goes back to the apartment and the lady's like, get out of here, mister, don't come back either. But, were they just trying to cover that up in an expensive part of town? I don't know. But I think the whole thing in my mind was it never really happened. He was probably visualizing this in his mind, and he had lost touch with reality. So you don't really know what really happened and what didn't happen. But if I had to guess, I'd say none of that happened.
So one of the theories that I watched is that his dad is really influential, and they mentioned that his dad was really big in the town, and that that it was covered up with his dad. Like his dad helped cover them all up because he owned that building or something. Or he owned the.
I thought his dad owned the company or something, didn't he?
Or something, yeah. And then that was one theory. But then another one is like people like in a fluent, in a upper class, like I mean, we've seen it in real life. People can get away with murder, right? And people just look the other way. If you're important, if you have a lot of money, if you're seen in a certain social standard. So, I mean, that could be another thing they were saying there, Mike. You know what I mean?
What did you take? I know this is kind of an odd question real quick, and I know we got to wrap this up, but there was a girl he was having an affair with.
Yep.
Behind his girlfriend's house. And then, they do the duty and then he's there getting dressed and she makes a comment like, if I don't see you before, and she's got all these medicine, all this prescription drugs. She goes, if I don't see you by Easter, have a good Easter. And I'm like, me and my wife were like, well, she's getting ready to commit suicide. She didn't want to marry the guy she was with. I mean,
well, the guy she was with is gay.
What was your take on that?
The guy she's with is gay too, though. He's in the closet, but
that's the same guy in the bathroom he was going to try to kill. And then
that's right.
The guy said, I've always wanted you to, or something like that.
Yeah. Yep. I took it away that she was in the pills and she just was like, didn't know what she was
wanted to have
saying.
a baby and couldn't have a baby. I took it she was getting ready to commit suicide.
Oh,
they never even expanded on that. I mean,
there's other people that think that head in the refrigerator is hers, but that's what some people think that.
I took it was the models. I didn't think it was hers.
I do too. But some people think that's her head.
Huh.
Yep.
Okay. So is there a favorite kill of yours?
Yeah, Paul Allen.
It's pretty obvious on that one. Yeah, that's mine too.
Yeah.
And
I just love how he puts that. We need a NECA figure of him in that coat with an axe, Mike. That
little dance he did before he went and got the axe and hit him in the head was pretty funny too. It reminded me of Jim Carrey on the old Saturday Night Live, the Living Color skits.
Yeah. Yep.
So, what is your rating, Josh, on this?
My rating is I'm going high on this one, Mike. I'm giving it 4 out of 5 raincoats.
Okay, raincoats. Okay.
Is that what that is? I don't know what it is. It's for the blood. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Butcher coat. I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, it's a poncho, like a water poncho, right? No, it was a raincoat. He had the hood and everything.
But it was clear though.
Yep. I'll be honest with you. When I've watched this movie, at the end of it, I didn't know if I liked it or not. I'll be honest with you. I was like, this sucks. I mean,
I know you did. You told me that.
Yeah, I was like, this is not that good. The more I think about it, though, the more it's kind of growing on me.
Yeah,
I would say it's a 3 to me. The audience believes on our type score system. The audience would say this is a 4.25.
Yeah.
And I'm going with a 3 and you said a 4. So yours is probably more with the most audience.
Yeah.
It's one of those that I would like to watch it 1 or 2 more times and maybe even recut this video 6 months or a year from now and see if the acting is incredible though.
Oh, yeah.
The acting's incredible.
Yes. And I do think it's a movie that rewards you on repeat viewings. I really do. Like it rewards you with repeat viewings, honestly. So I'm glad you kind of changed your mind on this, Mike, because at first you're like, this sucks.
I was upset the first 20 minutes, and then I didn't, at the end of it, I was like, it just kind of, I mean, I think what helped me, in all honesty, was hearing others' opinions of the ending of it. When I finished watching, I was like, none of this ever happened. It was all made up in his mind. And then when I started hearing other people think that or come up with other theories, and then got to go back and see the director and the person that wrote the book, their opinion on it, I was like,
right.
Okay. Because a lot of people, they said early on, were feeling very sad towards the character, Patrick Bateman.
Yeah.
And was kind of like supporting him And I read something where I think I can't remember if it's the director or the person that wrote the book said, no, I didn't want it to be that way at all. I mean, he was
sympathetic.
Yeah, they were sympathetic. Yeah, and he was like, "No, I didn't want it to be that way. He was a mass killer in this."
Right.
So I don't know if it was real or not, but
right.
All right. So, what do y'all think? Have you seen American Psycho? Are you a newbie like me, a rookie that's never seen it, or have you somebody more seasoned like Josh and his friends that have watched it many times?
As I say, I probably watched this at least 8 or 9 times at least.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Tell us your thoughts, your opinion. Please like and subscribe if you like what we're doing. And in the comments here, tell us your thoughts on it.
Go and
Have a good one, Josh.
We'll head over to Facebook and join Real Dead Horror Community.
That's right.
We post stuff over there and talk about horror, so it's great.
All right. Thank you, Josh. Have a good one, man.
See ya. Bye-bye.